Hey, how's it going? So I have some thoughts that I would like to share with the public. Subsequently, that'd be you on YouTube. So what I want to talk about in this video is electric vehicles, believe it or not. I know I'm usually the last person to ever actively want to talk about EVs, but I just been wondering something about EVs and how they are currently engineered. So in today's video, that's what I want to talk about is why are EVs engineered the way they are? Why they could be engineered so much better? So in a nutshell, what I don't understand about how EVs are engineered is why on earth these engineers only use, like, I think out of all of the EVs currently on the road today, only a few of them, if that, utilize more than 2 or max 3 gears, maybe. I just can't begin to understand why these auto manufacturers and these engineers aren't designing EVs to utilize more gears, like a normal transmission. Now, I'm no engineer, and I'm not claiming to be, and I'm not claiming to say what is being done now is wrong. However, this is my take from my understanding and applying my logic to the situation. I still think that if you can apply this logic, it would make EVs a whole lot better, not just from an efficiency standpoint, from a cost-effective standpoint, and from an enthusiast standpoint. Let me go ahead and get into that and explain what's going on. So, for the most part, you don't see typical transmissions in EVs because generally the whole chassis is built around a gigantic battery pack. So what usually is just a thin piece of sheet metal underneath the floor is a pretty substantial battery unit taking up all the space beneath the car. Now, with how EVs are currently designed, that makes sense because any gear reduction that's implemented into the EV motors are done so within the drive units themselves. So they don't need a transmission tunnel, they don't need the room for a drive shaft, or even if in a front wheel drive configuration, they don't need any extra space for hydraulic lines or anything else. Everything is in its own unit, put in wherever the wheel is driving. So I understand that. However, I think EVs and the engineers designing them are shooting themselves in the foot with this. Because let's be real, EVs are supposed to be the green, environmentally friendly, alternative to what we currently have. Internal combustion engines that are using petroleum-based fuels. Of course, nothing is perfect. You got pros and cons to everything. While electric motors themselves are so much more efficient in operation in terms of producing power than an internal combustion engine, the power source for those is not. That's the thing. It's like an electric motor is more efficient than a gasoline engine, but a simple fuel tank supplies greater energy density than a battery cell, at least the ones that we currently have in our vehicles. You need gigantic batteries just to get, 300-400 miles of range, which your normal typical commuter car does with a 16-gallon or less fuel tank. So you get a lot greater range per gallon of gas than you do per kilowatt of electricity with how things currently are. And I think a big portion of that is because these electric cars, a lot of this really should be, commuter friendly, everyday cars, but they're really building these things like race cars. They're putting 700,000-800,000 horsepower electric motors in these cars with these gigantic battery packs, and they don't need it. You're building a performance-based electric car, sure, why not? But if you're just building a normal sedan or something, what point is it? If it's just supposed to be an everyday vehicle. If you take a smaller electric motor, it's less powerful, something equivalent the power of a 300 horsepower, or even hell, 250 horsepower. Let's go with that, because we all know electric motors, they produce torque instantly. So you can get an electric motor that produces just all the torque you need, and at 250 horsepower for most small cars, that would be ideal, right? For your average Joe. Let's take that 250 horsepower electric motor and combine it with, I don't know, a minimum of a 6-speed transmission. Give it some gear reduction. Gear reduction has been like the most simplest form of torque multiplication since the freaking early days of industrial engineering. Gears have been around forever, okay? There's a reason for it. It just makes sense. Why not have a normal transmission adapted to an electric motor? You can use a smaller motor, you can get your greater torque multiplication by using the gear sets in that transmission than the motor would be able to do on its own. Therefore, you can obviously increase its efficiency. I understand a lot of the reason why electric motors don't use, gear reduction is because electric motor can spin, 20,000, 30,000 RPM easily. But what's more efficient? An electric motor spinning at 20, 30,000 RPM, or an electric motor spinning at 5, 10,000 RPM, max tilt. The way these engineers configure efficiency on these electric motors should be much like how they do it on gasoline engines. It's still going to use the same principles. If it's spinning at a much lower RPM, it's not going to use as much electricity, energy, than it would if it was at a high RPM. Because it's an electric motor, it still doesn't get away from that. It's the same idea as internal combustion engine. It takes more energy, i.e. fuel, to spin it higher RPM. Just simple as that, especially when you're moving mass, a vehicle. So if you have a 250 horsepower electric motor with a 6-speed transmission, you get all the power you need, better efficiency, which means you could probably use a lot smaller battery pack. Now, as it is, the battery pack is one of the single most expensive things in an EV vehicle, and it really is what makes the EVs so out of reach for everyone, is the fact that they're so damn expensive, and a lot of that cost is in that battery pack. It's just the materials that make up the battery cells are extremely expensive, okay? Once again, you're not getting around that. So why aren't these engineers and these manufacturers trying to find a way to make the electric motor more efficient? Therefore, they can get the same or similar amount of power, or at least, acceleration generated with using less energy. Therefore, you could use smaller battery packs, which is going to make it cheaper for the buyer, and it's also going to make the vehicle lighter. It's just going to make it better. You don't want weight in the vehicle, especially if you're trying to make it efficient. So less weight equals better. Smaller battery pack equals less expensive. Why aren't they doing this? When it comes to a enthusiast standpoint, oh my God, I feel like having some type of transmission, whether it be an automatic or, hopefully maybe one day manual, applications, is what's really the defining difference between our current vehicles and an electric vehicle. Now, your everyday person doesn't care about it, but it's the manipulation of the engine RPM is what makes driving an internal combustion engine fun, which is why most people do not care about CVTs, because it takes the operation of an internal combustion engine, it takes the fun right out of it. You want to be able to manipulate the gears like so. You want to be able to do that, and that's what makes it fun. And I think for me, I would be so much more open to the idea of an EV if it offered something like that. I don't want programmed gear shifts to simulate a transmission. What am I, playing a video game or driving a car? Come on now. Just engineer the damn things with real transmissions. There's no reason why you can't. It absolutely makes no sense to me why they aren't doing this. The electric motor really should just be a direct replacement as it is. We've spent so many years designing vehicle platforms the way they are, not just because they're facilitating an internal combustion engine. For this type of vehicle, this is what has become best, you know, the way we have these things engineered. They should keep the same concept, just instead of an internal combustion engine, you have an electric motor. You know, like on a rear-wheel drive car like this, for an electric Mustang, instead of being an internal combustion engine up there, it'd be an electric motor. There's still a transmission here. There's still a, you know, rear end back there. There's still all these different components, but the drive source, part of the vehicle that actually turns energy into rotational motion, is different. That's the only thing different. You know, as far as EVs go, the whole design of them is completely different than your average internal combustion engine vehicle. You know, just the whole design of them is completely different. The way the entire vehicle is engineered. And I honestly do not see a reason that the vehicles need to be engineered in such a manner to do so. Now, like I said earlier, the main reason why there's such a gigantic difference in the chassis engineering of EVs is because they are designing them to facilitate giant battery packs as the base structure of the vehicle. So once again, we can get rid of the giant battery packs. We can keep these normal vehicles. We can keep cars, for the most part, how they are and how they're designed and how we know them to be. We can increase our efficiency of them, you know, use our smaller battery packs, decrease the cost for people, okay? Gain efficiency, you know, we're getting more range out of the same size battery, or we're able to get the same range from a smaller battery than a large battery, right? And it makes it more fun for enthusiasts to have. Now, even though enthusiast buyers are a small percentage of overall vehicle sales, you got to understand that enthusiasts have contributed to a multi-billion-dollar industry in the automotive sector, okay? You take away multi-billion dollars from the automotive industry, you are ripping out the lifeblood of them. You know, most of these manufacturers all stem from racing in one way or another. That's what made us love cars so damn much, was racing them. So if you kill that whole section of the auto industry, no one's gonna want anything. They're gonna just stick with what they have. You're not gonna have people like, oh yeah, I'm gonna run out and get that right now. It's not gonna build emotion. It's not gonna build an impulse to buy. You know, from a sales perspective, that's bad. From a business perspective, if you're not selling, you're not in business. So if they can make EVs more attractive to the enthusiast, I think a lot more people like me would be much more open to wanting an EV vehicle, at least as a daily driver, right, than a internal combustion engine alternative. But for the most part, that's my thoughts on the whole idea. Like I said, I'm no engineer. I have no clue if there's really supposed to be a good reason or not for why they do the things they do. I don't know. I'm just saying that's my thoughts on the whole thing. But let me know your thoughts on everything. Let me know if you agree with what I said about utilizing gear reduction or just normal transmissions to increase the efficiency of electric motors and the current batteries that we have. Let me know what you think about it. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for this video. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Share with everyone you know. If you want to see more content like this and you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Keep looking out for the next true car enthusiast video.